What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rick's Man Cave. I'm Rick. Welcome to the channel. There was nothing like watching a horror movie as a kid. The screen glowing in the background of a dark room, the eerie soundtrack coming in, and that feeling that maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't be watching this. Some movies scared us, some stuck with us long after they ended, and some became the reason that we checked the bed or the closet at the end of the night. Today we're diving into my top 5 most nostalgic horror movies of all time. The ones that defined our childhood nightmares and still hold up today. Number 5, Scream. I love this movie. This wasn't just a worn out slasher flick, it was a full-blown phenomenon. Bringing horror back into the mainstream in a way that felt fresh, self-aware, and genuinely terrifying. What made Scream so special was how it played with the rules of horror while still delivering real suspense. Ghostface wasn't just some monster like Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger, where you could blow him to smithereens and they just come back like nothing ever happened. He was real, he was unpredictable, he was human. He could be anyone, which made the mystery element just as engaging as all of the movie's kills. The opening scene alone, with the infamous phone call with Drew Barrymore and Ghostface, was enough to scar a whole generation of kids. It told us right away, at least it told me, nobody's safe. On top of all that, up until this point, Scream made horror cool again. It was a while before there was a really good slasher flick like there was in the 80s. And when Scream dropped, you saw that mask in every store, every department store, all over the place. And even now, decades later, today, Scream still holds up. The original Scream still holds up because it didn't rely on cheap scares or anything. It was fresh, stylish, and it was just as brutal as all the classics that it paid homage to. Number 4. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warrior. The 1980s had a really distinct horror vibe. That soft, almost dreamlike fog in the cinematography. The eerie glow of the neon lights, the use of practical effects in the 80s made it look surreal, almost otherworldly. And no movies at the time captured that vibe better than Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. This was the Nightmare on Elm Street movie that felt the biggest at the time. Bigger kills, bigger imagination, and a bigger story. Freddy wasn't just sneaking into your dream anymore, he was toying with you in a way that felt like a twisted video game. The idea of teens figuring out that they had powers in their dreams felt different than all the other slashers, especially the other Freddys at the time. It wasn't about surviving anymore, it was about fighting back. It had everything. A killer soundtrack, Freddy was at his absolute worst. The practical effects were obviously the most modern at the time, so they were creating Freddy and actually making sculptures of Freddy, and it gave it this really otherworldly, weird look, you know? Dream Warriors is what happens when the 80s goes all in on horror, and that's exactly the same reason why it still holds up today. That's my number 4. Number 3, Child's Play. There's something unsettling about something evil being hidden dormant inside of something so innocent. And that's what made Child's Play so terrifying. I completely forgot I actually have a Child's Play doll right here, a Chucky doll, but the good guy doll was supposed to be every child's best friend. Something comforting, something safe. But Chucky, he was always there, waiting, listening, watching. The scariest moment in the movie wasn't even when Chucky was slashing and stabbing and doing. To me, the scariest point in the movie was when Catherine Hicks, Andy's mother in the movie, she went home after coming from the police station with her son. She just lost her son. She goes back home. She opens the box to look at it, the empty good guy doll box, and the batteries fall out. And the crazy thing is you could see Chucky in the background. It just gave me these tingly, weird feelings, you know, and that's why I like Child's Play so much as compared to, because honestly, in my opinion, the newer ones kind of suck. It's just an opinion, especially the show, like what the seed of Chucky, that's a whole nother video, but this first one, it really had that 80s sense of, it had the atmosphere too, it had the storytelling. There's a story that had never been told before. What made Child's Play even creepier was the slow burn of Chucky's presence. He was always almost in the background of every scene, and he was just there, lifeless, but watching. That feeling of something sinister lurking in the background, hiding in plain sight, is unsettling. And then after all the suspense, finally in the climax of the films, he comes out. He's just not an innocent doll. He's a swearing, cursing, nasty, filthy, murdering person trapped inside this doll. And it's that mix of childhood innocence and evil that made Child's Play one of the scariest and most memorable films of the 1980s. Number 2, the 1990 Stephen King's It. There's a reason the 90s Pennywise is still one of the most horrifying characters of all time. He looked too real. He wasn't some exaggerated creature or over-the-top monster. He was just a clown. The 90s cinematography added to it as well. The soft lighting, the grainy film, the slow pacing, all of it added to why this movie was so good. It made it feel like something real, like something that can happen in your town. Another thing with Pennywise was that he wasn't hiding in the shadows. He was there. He was in your face, and he was luring his victims in rather than trying to trap them. He was in your face and smiling, and his smile was almost had a Grinch-like thing to it. You know, he was happy on the exterior, but you could tell that there was something nasty behind it. Especially that shower scene when he comes out of the faucet. I mean, most 90s kids would remember that scene. I mean, that traumatized me when I was a kid, but I loved it too at the same time. And just like Child's Play, you know, there had never been a clown movie, a killer clown movie like this before. We never had one that was this calculated, this intelligent, this patient. He didn't lure his victims, like I said. He was right there. He was playing with his victims. He made them feel safe just long enough to when that fear crept in. By the time they realized that there was something sinister, it was too late. Whether it was the bright red hair, the cinematic storytelling, or just that sinister feeling of the way the 90s cinematography was, it's the reason it still holds up today. In my opinion, when it comes to nostalgic horror films, that's number 2. And finally, we get to number 1. Number 1 most nostalgic horror movie to me is the 1981 classic Halloween 2. There's very few movies that capture that dreamlike aesthetic and that eerie feeling like Halloween 2. The setting alone was enough to make your skin crawl. The dimly lit artificial cold light in the hallways, a nearly empty hospital, the distant sound of life support machines in the background. Michael Myers wasn't just stalking homes anymore. He had an entire building at his disposal, stalking, lurking in the shadows. This movie had shocking revelations that we finally found out that Michael Myers was his sister. We found out that the cult of Sam Hain, where Michael was something that was further than just a human that's evil. It was almost a supernatural force coming from an ancient pagan time. You know, it's a lot of new stuff in the movie. But for me, the nostalgia really came from the cinematography, the 80s cinematography of the soft lighting, the fog, and just like the slow panning shots with Michael in the background, or maybe he's walking down an empty street. I really, really enjoyed the way Michael would just stand in the background, perfectly blended in with the darkness, made him feel like he was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It's the kind of suspense and terror that I feel a lot of horror movies, especially now, are lacking and have been for a while. With the release of movies like Terrifier 3, it's just all about blood and guts. You notice in the first Halloween movie, there was almost no blood. It's all suspense, it's all atmosphere and aesthetic, and that's what I really appreciated about Halloween 1981. This wasn't just another slasher, it was a nightmare brought to life, and that's exactly why it still holds up today. So that was my top 5. It's funny how some of the movies that terrified us as kids are our comfort food now when we're adults. Maybe it's because the horror movies felt different back then, slower, more eerie, more paced. Or maybe it's because these movies remind us of a time when we could actually be scared before life actually gave us things to be scared about. Because now they don't remind us of fear, they remind us of our childhood, of a time when the world felt mysterious, when a TV flickering in a dark room was the only thing needed to transport us somewhere else. So now I want to hear from you. Which movies are most nostalgic to you? Which ones scared you the most growing up as a kid? And which ones would be in your top 5? Drop a comment below, let's talk about it. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment. I want to talk to all you guys. I just want to create a community based on stuff that I love. That's it. My name is Rick. This is Rick's Man Cave. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Till next time.